Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te re tangata, tau mai te mauri o te manawa ora, hei arahi a tātou, hui te marama, hui te ora, haumi e, hui e, kai ki e.
Take what of our podcasting?
Yeah, truly. We've got a whole other episode in the can already.
Yeah, we do. I can't even remember what we talked about in that one, actually.
It was a bunch of things. It went all over the place. I think we talked a little bit about the journey we had gone on around considering developing a program for young people and about how men don't tend to learn the breadth of emotions until they're in their 20s.
Yeah,
I remember
true.
that was a big lesson for me in that.
That was your 20s,
Yeah, of
learning
going,
emotions.
yeah. Wow, there's more than 5 emotions.
Is that really what you thought? That,
Yeah.
And did it help, learning
Well,
the expansion of emotions or perhaps the layering of emotions?
it was the layering.
Yeah.
Realizing that actually several of these emotions can be present simultaneously, and if we're not truly in tune with what those different layers are, we can only address one of them and think we're addressing the breadth of what we're feeling.
Yeah, true.
You know, so then hurt could be addressed as anger because it is both anger and sadness. And it's like, well, if you just address the anger piece, you don't actually do anything about the sadness there.
Yeah, and I suppose there's even more complexities when maybe a piece of you feels like an element of joy or happiness or relief, and then it's like, what am I even feeling?
Yeah, this is just confusing.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't fit into the standard box of sadness, happiness, anger, jealousy,
Yeah.
Fear.
So then what is the reaction when somebody, or in that instance, your own perspective or tāne, then what is the reaction to that confusion around
I think it's to revert to just one of the primaries, and usually those primaries are anger and sadness. Because if it's joy, it's like all good, but you go to what are the other ones? And in their pure form, well, some of those emotions are not even okay to experience. That was kind of my experience growing up. Is like, well, sadness is a bit of a tough one for any people around you to know how to manage or hold or regulate. And so it's like, don't feel that. It's like they kind of like close that one down, turn that one off.
So then is anger most acceptable, or just no feelings?
I think anger is most socially accepted in men as the norm. Not that it's like, usually it's perversely managed, eh?
Yeah.
It comes out or expresses in unhealthy ways.
And then punished.
Yeah. I mean, I would be surprised if less than half of people that go to prison is because of some anger management issue that they've had growing up around regulating their own anger. It's like a pretty common pathway into violence and then prison systems.
Just not knowing how to regulate it all, eh? Which is actually almost an interesting conversation, to bring that into around horses too.
Yeah, right, the co-regulating.
Yeah. And one thing that I was brought up with, and I know lots of other people were brought up with as well, is leave your emotions at the gate. So you're not allowed to bring emotions into working with horses. Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
Well, I think what I've learnt is horses are really good at reading congruency, and especially if you're incongruent, they can feel if on the inside you're feeling all those layers of emotions, but on the outside you're pretending you've got a mask on of being brave or...
And does that make them less trusting? Because they're like, hang on a minute, this incongruency of what I know you're feeling on the inside but how you're presenting on the outside means that I'm going to sort of stay jumpy and a bit on edge because I'm like, I don't know, at any time you might bring out that deeper one.
Yeah.
If I've leant in a bit or let my guard down and then suddenly bang, you're going to hit me with this incongruency, they'll be on edge, which is an interesting one because they may just be a more sensitive lens or filter to what any living being is, including humans. And so maybe we're slightly desensitized to recognizing the incongruence within other humans, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And so actually being in our authentic self and communicating from that place means people can truly drop around you.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and the horses are so good at mirroring that. And I think some of my work, because I got so good at reading it with horses, that I could really read it with people as well.
Got it.
But then...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I think then I also have had to learn not to take that on as a responsibility.
Yeah.
To manage that for somebody else.
Yes,
and
but you can be a bridge between going, okay, I've learned through my time with the horses how sensitive they are and how they use that sensing to pick up on the way that a human might be thinking, feeling, acting, behaving, presenting. And you're now the bridge to be like, I can help humans. I can now I'm sensitive enough to see that in humans, but I can now help humans to reach that space.
Yeah. And I think a really cool lesson that like comes into my mind is one time we had this this really sensitive horse that had come from a bit of a rough background, and he'd been in a competition scene where I guess like he had to push down his emotions and he wasn't allowed to have emotions, and then they had come out in an explosive way. So anyway, he came into our herd, and one time the horses were down on the arena, and across the road from us was a family that had pigs, and this pig had wandered around the corner, and Louis the pony had seen the pig, and he was panicking. He was like in full survival mode, and I was watching from up at the house, so he would stand there like snorting at it, and he's like in high alert, like his ears are pricked, he's like doing big heavy breathing and snorting, and then he would like power forward over to this fence line to like take a closer look, and then he would spin around and run back. And then I watched Chrome, my pony, who I think has been allowed to have emotions and is pretty good at like regulating himself and being toe. He joined him, and not right beside him, but far enough away. And I watched him just like he was like that neutral, like calm, like he didn't try and like join in on it. He didn't try and like fix it or anything. But as Louis would like wander over, like, or charge over to the fence, he would just like wander over, and then he'd stand there and they'd look together, and then they'd like, Louis would charge back that way and he would turn around and just like wander back. So it was kind of like he was there, and I can imagine his nervous system was like settled. And after a while, Louis started to come down and match Chrome in his energy. And I was like, there's some lessons in that.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Holding that toe space, being the bridge of like mirroring the actions and being there for that person, but actually not having to go through the intensity of that experience. Very relevant for like raising young kids too. When they don't quite have control of their emotional experience. It's very big emotions, very intense, and you kind of like, okay, well, let me just model to you what I'm seeing and what's happening here for your experience and help you understand this.
It's kind of like validating it in a way, eh?
Yeah, but yet people who may not have that same access to the regulation state or be able to see big emotions and still stay regulated in the presence of them might spike in that, even with kids.
Yeah.
And like react to rather than help to settle.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're joining in on that heightened energy, instead of coming back to yourself. What do you think that would look like in a, like where do we see that sort of thing in te ao Māori emotions and regulation and...
Well, I remember an interesting kōrero from Tāhirini Moko Mead, where he was doing research around emotions and the physical location of them in the body. And that's one interesting piece of mātauranga Māori, is to look at the different parts of the body and what they hold and what they represent and what energy centers they reflect. We think about the three hearts, you know, the pū manawa, the whatu manawa, and te manawa. We think about even sayings that we have, like te tau o taku ate, you know, the seat of my emotions.
Yeah.
But the ate is not the heart, you know?
That's the liver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go, okay, cool. We're actually talking about that love, or that concept of like the centeredness of that emotion sitting in the liver.
That's so fascinating. So you could imagine that maybe as well as there being like wellness there and those good feelings, if that area, if there's mamae hurt around that, then that could also cause like illness or in that area.
Yep, and we think about like, so that could be on the positive side, like the love, but then we think about on, not that there are positive and negative emotions, but there are perceived as such, things like pukuriri, you know, so this concept of, okay, well, maybe your anger actually is sitting in the puku.
Yeah, so riri is anger and puku tells us that it's in your puku.
Yeah, that's where it's maybe seated or coming from, or where the energy is actually being felt or sourced, or that might be the part of the body we need to feel into in order to resolve it. So that is a piece of mātauranga Māori that I think is not as well known or utilised as a regulation filter or map.
Yeah, so learning more to like feel into our tinana, into our body, to identify emotions and how to sit with them and be okay with them instead of pushing it away, instead of leaving them at the arena gate.
Yeah, and that's what I learned from Vipassana, which in itself is somewhat of an indigenous practice, or an intergenerational practice of thousands of years ago from the Buddha. And sitting in Vipassana, the whole message there is come out of the mind and feel into the body. Because it's in the body that we experience feeling.
Yeah.
And that we experience this energy and motion.
It's not a thought.
No, it's not thoughts, but we I think are too quick to think that an emotion is a thought.
Yeah.
Right? And so we deal with the logical thinking part of that, but forget that actually it's stored somewhere in the body, and that's why practices like somatic dance and indigenous versions of that around the fire and things have been there for so long, because it's actually about moving the body and moving the emotion.
Yeah. And I guess we see that in our haka, and our waiata aringa, and our poi, and all of these different expressions of movement,
The body is the vessel, is the vehicle for release and expression.
And so then I can imagine like horses would also hold those different feelings in different parts of their body as well.
Well, you would know that from the hands-on work that you do with horses, right? That you can actually you can feel where they're holding it, but you can see their release as they allow they feel into different parts of the body and allow that to soften.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting as well, because in the mind-body work that I do, like oftentimes when I'm teaching, and I've done this as well, like I'm like, okay, I know that area is like an area that needs work, like there's some big stuff around that area, so you kind of go to dive straight into that, and oftentimes the horse will be like, no, like that's too much too soon. It's almost
blocked from that area, or it's just like it's not quite safe enough yet for me to open that part of the body up to feel into it.
Yeah, so you have to start somewhere else to build trust and safety, and then you can explore into those deeper areas that hold more of the tension and hurt and feelings.
So do you tend to start in a neutral space, a space where you have sense, oh, they're probably not holding a lot here, but at least this can allow me in, can allow some touch, can allow some movement of that touch, and then I can sort of like slowly move my way into whatever part of the horse is actually needing to really become unstuck.
Yeah, totally. And they'll guide you as
I
well.
see.
They're such good communicators. When you start letting them know that you're listening, then they're pretty happy to show you and tell you like what it is that they want and need. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Cool. Well, shall we? We've like had the hui before the hui.
Yeah, that's right. The wānanga before the wānanga.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to start us off with the karakia that you wrote for me. Must be about 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yes, 4 years ago.
Yeah, and this was like at the very beginning of my journey into Te Ao Māori. So, okay, ka pai. Okay, we'll start off with a couple of breaths, eh? Ha ki roto. Ha ki waho. Ha ki roto. Ha ki waho. Me karakia tātou. Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te here tangata. Tau mai te Māori o te manua ora, hei arahi i a tātou, hui te ora, hui te marama, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Well, thank you for being here with me today in my whare. Maybe if we just rewind a little bit and we'll begin with ko wai koe, nohea koe, and then we can start diving into our kaupapa some more.
Kia ora. Ka pai. O he uri tēnei no te raroa kai whare, no ngā puhi nui tonu, me taranaki maunga. So I have connections to the far north, which is where I grew up. Ancestrally through Taranaki, which is relevant, talking about that connection today because we're so close to the lakes, Tarawera, Rotorua, and this is an area where my whaia tupuna was quite a prominent guide back in the day, 7 generations ago, so it's beautiful to be back here. But I'm kind of this curious mix, like many of us, of many different cultures, mainly from the West, and as well as Māori, and so like most of my upbringing was actually not in Te Ao Māori at all, because on my mum's side she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl from Ellerslie in Auckland. She's got a Jewish mother and an English father, and then my dad's from the far north, but you know, strong Norwegian history there, strong Welsh and a bit of French in the mix, and English. So there's just, and Scottish, there's a lot of different pools of ancestry in me. But also, I would say that growing up in the far north on land that we've come to learn is actually intergenerational land, surrounded by the mātauranga and the practices and the tikanga and the expression of our tribes of the North Te Raroa in particular. It was such a beautiful place to grow up and then discover that connection to that, to know that that just wasn't a beautiful ornament or a beautiful performance-based thing that was happening in the community. That was actually an intergenerational wisdom that I could also access as a pool of mātauranga to not only learn and grow from, but to help steward and replenish, to allow that to be passed down. And so that I've been on my own journey of reconnection, knowing that 4 generations ago in that side of my family, we had a trauma event where after a few months of giving birth, my whaia tupuna passed away. And she had married an Englishman fresh off the boat. So that child grew up, and her parents had passed away from TB already.
Wow.
So that child grew up amongst Pākehā families in Takahua without any connection to his Māori side. So then we have, like, from there, of course, every generation since has had that sense of lack of connection to culture.
Yeah. What has it done for you and your whānau in that process of reconnecting?
I think there had been a lot of trauma in previous generations of my family around being Māori, not being Māori enough to actually be Māori, but also not being able to pass as not Māori.
Yeah.
I remember hearing my grandmother telling us stories of when she was at school and her sister, who was a lot fairer skinned than her, when her sister would go and drink from the water fountain, and then she would drink from the water fountain, and you know, the other kids would say to her sister, "Oh, don't drink from that fountain. Amara's drinking from that fountain." It's her own sister. So
That's
these
awful.
kinds of things, and if you're a sensitive being, especially if you're not strongly and confident in your own sense of identity, because that part of you has not necessarily been looked after or built up, that can be quite a devastating thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been passed down. And so I think that in our generation, we're the first one to really be breaking that and to be reconnecting, rebuilding that sense of identity and connection and strength and confidence and belonging and self-determination in that way. And it's beautiful to see what that can then look like in the next generation. And you'll know this in your own family, when you become the product of reconnection in the next generation, it becomes somewhat of like this is just the way of life.
Yeah, just normalizes it all, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can take 2 generations to lose it, but actually 2 generations to get a lot of it back. Maybe
Yeah.
not to the same extent and depth as it was, but definitely to have normalized it within the household.
That's pretty neat, eh? That's definitely gives you that feeling of like, yeah, we're doing it. Like,
We're doing
and it's
it.
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we're doing it piece is actually a really important message to hold on to, because I've been really blessed, even though I didn't grow up deeply within the Māori community, to have sat at the feet of a lot of different elders over time from the north and from around the country, and learned from them in different situations, on marae, at their houses, and also in wānanga because of the mahi that I've been able to do
Yeah.
more recently. People like Hone Paitai, Malcolm Pere, Matua Heck Busby. These are kaumātua from the north. And so to have been able to learn from them, and then to have also sat with different elders from different iwi as well, to hear other expressions of mātauranga Māori. People like Hereni Mokomid, who's done a whole lot of research around what that looks like at an academic level and then at an application level.
Yeah.
And what I've learned about a lot of that, and this lesson actually came from Manuka Henare, who's another kaumātua from the Hokianga. He talked about mātauranga Māori as this reciprocal relationship that we have, where it's a collection of practices, right? So it's not this generic sense of knowledge base, but actually this collection of bespoke, place-based, localized knowledge about localized things. When it's all collected together, we term that mātauranga Māori. And he always would remind us that this pool of knowledge needs to be replenished. And so mātauranga Māori is not a static thing that existed in the past. It's this dynamic pool that we continue to add to. And if we're not adding to that pool of knowledge and updating it and refreshing it in terms of the context of the moment, then it is actually, it's sort of like a dead pool of knowledge.
That's so interesting. So yes, although we want to look to the past and what was applicable then, we also need to be looking to the here and now, and that's dependent on where we are as well, hey?
Yeah, and then that's why there are just so many whakatauki that reflect this concept, you know, of like titiro whakamuri ke anga whakamua, māmua, māmuri, these kinds of concepts of like intergenerational thinking. You know, Māori, we know that Māori and indigenous cultures have this kind of foresight about looking after mokopuna, but also tupuna, because it's all around this concept of the puna, the puna mātauranga, this wellspring of wisdom. And so that's what sustains us through these seasons, through these lifetimes, through these generations, was this handed down puna mātauranga. But it's only because we sustained it.
Yeah, in this moment.
And made sure that we were both adding to it, refreshing it, making it relevant, ensuring it's relevant, and then passing that on. And if we don't pass it on, then like water, it will just drip through our fingers and cease to be.
It kind of makes me think about like, where we're getting it is where we're getting it wrong in this day and age. Often, if we're not looking at Indigenous models like Te Ao Māori, there's not so much of a looking in the past nor looking in the future, and so it's almost like it's just for today. So we're not bringing forward with us the wisdom from the past, but then we're also not caring about the environment for tomorrow, for the mokopuna.
We're untapped from those two time horizons.
Yeah.
And what happens then is that then people are actually just making up knowledge, which is what we're seeing a little bit is this Instagram generation, right? Where anybody can be the source of wisdom. And in a Tauranga Māori lens, worldview, you'd always say, you know, always question, well, where does that knowledge come from? Because any person should not be the repository of knowledge. They should merely be a māngai or a mouthpiece of a particular whare wānanga or of a particular kura or branch of the tree of knowledge. And if we can't point to the genesis of it or the origin or the source from which we learned it, that is intensifying when now it might not be even our own knowledge, but we might be outsourcing that to artificial intelligence, right? Which doesn't have the same pool of wisdom from which it draws. Trained on Reddit data, trained on Twitter data.
That's a bit scary, eh?
Can be, because you and especially with the level of hallucination that AI is willing to bring into its answers, it means that we can't really trust that information. And it's so persuasive. Right? And so this is where I think the original AI, the ancestral intelligence, becomes such an important key for us to unlock. The wisdom of how our taiao works, of how our relationships work to everything, and how we can navigate self and the collective.
Yeah, and I guess like that is sort of the essence, I guess, of this podcast is like, what can we learn from our cultures, our Indigenous cultures that help us to heal that symbiotic and reciprocal relationship between all of the things, taiao, hoiho, humans, and what can we do to help guide us back to those things, because I think we are very much in that place of, and I think that so many people are longing for this, and I suppose that's why it's easy to grasp hold of things on Instagram or TikTok or AI, but then end up feeling even more lost in it all.
And so connecting with local mātauranga Māori, which we can get from the taiao. All mātauranga comes from the taiao. All atuatanga comes from the taiao. And we're only one moment away from reconnecting to that. To know that it's as accessible as that is such a, it takes some of that intensity away.
Yeah, it makes it feel not so out there and out of reach, hey? Can you explain what is taiao and what is atua for those that are listening that are not Māori, or maybe they are Māori and they're at the very beginning of their journey?
I remember this concept of taiao being explained to me by a man from the Whanganui, whose name was Tamahau Rowe. And Tamahau talked about the taiao being te tai o te a me te tai o te o. The cycles or the tides of Ranginui and the tides and the cycles of Papatuanuku. And about that dynamic flow and weave that happens. And if you've been to Cape Reinga, Te Rerenga Wairua, you see the two oceans meet each other. The masculine ocean of the Tasman Sea and the feminine ocean of the Pacific. And you see them come together and the way that they navigate. And that particular kind of weave is called moanarua. Moanarua is to weave two oceans together. Moanarua. The two weaving oceans. And so I think about that as like a visual representation of the taiao. In a sense of like where the dynamic flow and harmony exists and all the energies and permutations that come from that. And that's why the cosmological origins of Māori atua is typically categorized from the descendants of Ranginui and Papatuanuku, because they represent those polarities, those energetic polarities of the feminine and the masculine. And so the atua are a reflection of the different energetic pulsations of that expression, or called the children of Rangi and Papa. And the mokopuna that descend from the children, it's basically every conceivable permutation of an energetic reaction that happens in the environment comes from Rangi and Papa. Makes up our taiao.
And there's a whakapapa to everything, an ancestry to everything, hey? Like from the clay to the different types of winds. We can trace it all, huh?
Whakapapa, literally to make base layers, or to connect back to Papa, to take our reflection of our connection point all the way back to those primordials. The interesting thing that I've learned about whakapapa though, or heard in wānanga, is that whakapapa is not just this vertical moment back in time, through the layers of our different tupuna, but is this horizontal weave of relationships. And that's why the writings of Māori Marsden have been brought together and called The Woven Universe, as the title of that book, because what he was talking about and what a lot of the mātauranga reflects is actually the interweave of everything. The woven relationships that we hold, which enable us to then connect so intensely to the taiao, because we can create a whakapapa-based connection to that thing. It creates the whole epistemology of mātauranga Māori and a way of remembering it, because it's just like this beautiful grid, like diagrammatic way of seeing the connections to everything. And that's why it's also the ways in which we relate to each other through whakapapa, horizontal whakapapa, of finding connections, and not just people, but to different animals, to different plants, is actually like a fundamentally different way of looking at the world to a Western lens.
Can you talk about that different way of looking at it through that lens?
Well, it means that you can uncover encoded connections that the Western world wouldn't otherwise find. And we know that through various pieces of taiao mātauranga, like this kōrero around the sibling relationship between the whale and the kauri tree. And as brothers way back in the days, at a kind of a genetic level, they were so close in DNA, but then the whale wanted to adventure out into the oceans, and the kauri tree said, okay, I'll hold it down here on the land. But they swapped skins and coats, and so the kauri tree gifted its skin to the tohora, and the whale gifted its cloak or its bark to the Kauri tree, and they went on their journeys, but one went on its journey while one held down the forest, but they're both the apex tuakana of the environment.
Yeah.
In the sea and on land, and they still have the symbiotic relationship with one another, where they speak vibrationally to each other. We can hear the whale call. We can't hear the call of the Kauri tree, but we know that it has a vibrational frequency.
Wow.
We know that if we map the sonic soundscape of it, and of all of the different species of rako and insects that exist as the ecosystem around the Kauri tree, that it's got a vibrational frequency of health.
Yeah.
And with Western
right.
tools, we can now map that.
And that matches that of the whale?
That resonates with that of the whale.
Yeah.
So when the Kauri trees are sick, there's whales stranding.
Wow, that is incredible.
When the whales are being decimated or not in this regulated state because they're being thrown off because of all of the sonar being used by ships, all these kind of things that are interrupting their patterns, the Kauri trees get sick. Yeah. And so part of that healing journey in Te Tai Tokerau that's being explored now by our modern day Rongoā practitioners, our tohunga in that realm, is to utilize some of the parts of the whale, the stranded whales, and turn that into a hinu, turn that into a balm, utilize some of those different rongoā from the forest, mix it together, apply that to the Kauri trees so that then that Kauri dieback pathogen can actually be suppressed.
And that's working.
That when you combine that with and not separate it from the resonant frequency contained through sound, then it can be successful. So of course they're playing mōteatea to those trees. They're playing various different taonga pūoro in order to create the vibrational frequency that reflects a healthy state of the taia.
It's wild, eh?
But where do you see that in a Western world?
Yeah.
How could you ever make the links there in a Western world when you don't have a whakapapa-based mapping to see the connections and it just make complete sense?
Because how can you achieve that when you're in a lab? Or which kind of, I guess, like in my mind I'm saying like it reflects what we see of just like that disconnection in general from mind to body to nature. So how would you ever know that there's that link between a whale and a tree, hey? That's phenomenal. Or
a link between a horse and a human. Different beings. Yeah. And so rather than having an othering story, I mean, humans are so good at othering everything, we even other the body from the mind. Yeah. The Cartesian divide, Yeah. Where Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Yeah. I am this brain. Yeah. And this thing just carries my brain around. Like and then if we're separating the brain, the mind from the body, where is spirit? That's just, it's not even in the equation.
Yeah, it's not even part of the conversation. Well, it's interesting because it was a horse that taught me that, that connection, because as the work that you were talking about before, the mind-body work, it was through working with a horse, and we were kind of like, wow, this is incredible. Like, we're seeing all these big changes in these horses. And so we were sort of thinking, like, we need to give this thing a name so that we can refer to it easily. And I remember I was driving up this hill, heading back towards Tāpapa. And I thought, it's kind of like the body impacts the mind and the mind impacts the body. And I was like, we'll call it the mind-body work. And then so I thought I better jump on and do some Googling about this thing. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this has
There's a
been
whole
around
practice.
forever. Yeah. But yeah, it was beautiful to have a horse show me that and heal that for me. Yeah.
And once you sort of see that, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow that connection.
That's right. Well, that shifted the whole way I worked with horses from then. So shall we talk a little bit about how we came to begin these conversations? And I think I wanted to start with talking to you fairly early on in our podcast series, because it was sort of this moment of me listening to this podcast with Rupert Isaacson and hearing him talk about these Indigenous practices and his experiences with horses and Indigenous practices and what was going on in their own family. And I was just in awe of what I heard. And I thought, oh, I want to know more about this. But first I need to know more about my own culture, because I was really disconnected at that point. And I think I had this feeling of like, cultural appropriation, like I didn't want to just dive into someone else's culture and take from that, but what does that look like in my own culture, and why don't I know about it? And that was what I brought to you, and you told me about the Tohunga Suppression Act, which I had never heard about before. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? And
I mean, I don't know a lot about the Tohunga Suppression Act other than it was a reaction to, I believe, Spanish flu.
Right.
And so at that time, traditional Māori practices may not have been so successful at helping address Spanish flu, because it's brought into this country. And so there was a concern that actually if tohunga were going to be used as the main source of healing for this particular thing, that could mean that a lot of whānau die unnecessarily. The consequence of it, though, was that it meant that it sort of outlawed the traditional Māori practices of healing and of sharing wisdom and knowledge. And so then we had this intergenerational loss of practice and knowledge sharing through outlawing that. And so it wasn't, I don't think, a tool that was intended for as a traditional knowledge system destroyer, but it definitely, like everything else in colonization, had the effect of doing that.
Yeah.
So it became a very effective tool of colonization.
Interesting. Yeah. And I guess that, like, at the time just kind of broke my heart, like, because that was such new knowledge to me. And then it started to sort of open doors of like, oh, okay, like maybe this has all got something to do with why I'm disconnected from our culture. And because I guess I grew up knowing like that we were Māori, but kind of like you, that sense of like not Māori enough, but not European enough to fit in those sort of situations as well. And so, yeah, I think hearing that, I was like, okay, now my heart was broken, but I was like, now I need to know all the things and dive into this journey. And so I think we came back together a little bit later on, and well, we had lots of conversations around, well, what does it look like to indigenize our mahi, our workspaces? And I guess like you have done that with your work, would you say?
I think what we're attempting to do is to re-indigenize what it means to do governance and to lead an organization. And these organizations are reasonably Western constructs in their own right.
Yeah.
And so because you have an organization, even for iwi organizations or any kohanga reo or kura kaupapa Māori, they still have this construct which is you have a leadership team or a board of trustees, and then you have like a delegated CEO or principal, and then you have all the staff.
Yeah.
There are parallels to that leadership model, to leadership models like that, in a Māori and traditional Māori or various indigenous cultural sense, but at the same time, there's still like a legal structure that remains, which is Western. But we don't want that that structure to feel so outside of the context of an indigenous setting that we can't work with it. Because if we can't work with it, and yet we have to have these structures from a legal context, where are we? You know, we're lost within it.
Yeah.
And so I think that what we are doing is looking at how do we re-indigenize those spaces. And if you can re-indigenize that space, which is arguably some of the hardest spaces to re-indigenize, then you can re-indigenize every other practice that you do at a home level, at a whānau level, at a community level.
Yeah, yeah. And so what does re-indigenizing or indigenizing, just full stop, spaces look like in a practical way?
Well, I think that before we can indigenize spaces, we need to decolonize them. Because we need to, and what I mean by that is we need to recognize in which ways the things that we do habitually, ritualistically, and in practice are a reflection of a Western way of doing things or a Western way of thinking. And so, because if we can't first understand where the colonized part of that is happening, we then are not innately and immediately thinking about, well, what might be the indigenous approach to this.
So it's bringing your awareness to it first of what are we doing that fits into those colonial structures.
Yeah, and sometimes we can't do that work in isolation because we don't see our own blind spots. And that's why this concept of whakapapa and the woven universe and relating and doing these things with a collective mindset, which sits at the core of indigenous philosophy, is about doing it as a group, as a collective, rather than as one person trying to like logically think their way through this stuff. And I think that my bias is towards a very logical way of thinking, and kind of that scientific method approach. And so, which does, I mean, our ancestors absolutely were incredible scientists. When we look at the layers of what Mātauranga Māori holds, deep science that even Western knowledge systems are not yet able to unlock.
And only just catching up in some ways.
And only catching up because they're learning directly from the indigenous wisdom. So, and arguably all Western knowledge is actually just because the British and other Western cultures sent fleets out around the world to go and learn from all of the indigenous knowledge that was around the world and bring it back to the centre, to Mother England. So what it looks like in our context, in our organisation, to re-indigenize our practices, what I've found actually is it's about bringing in those who are well-versed in holding indigenous spaces and ensuring that there is the free and open space where we can wānanga that together. Being good at bridge building between two worlds, because everybody's on some part of a continuum, right? And the thing is, the continuum's not static. If you think about your own journey over the last 3 to 4 years, what an intense and incredible journey that has been. Where you started then, where I asked you a question then about, do you know a karakia?
So you were helping me to write a karakia because that was sort of from that conversation, like how do we indigenize our workspaces, and where I arrived at for myself at the point I was at in my journey was I would quite like to bring karakia into opening spaces, whether it was in workshops that I was hosting or working with the horses as well. And so you wrote a karakia And after we had had a conversation around what were my intentions, so that was such a beautiful process. And then after you had written it, we had a conversation about, I guess, just making sure I wasn't cherry picking and like doing it to tick the box sort of thing, but that I actually understood it. And so you took me through what you had written, and we looked at what words did I understand and which ones I didn't. And do you remember what happened?
From my memory, you didn't understand any of the words.
Yeah.
And that brought up a real strong emotional reaction in you.
Yeah, yep, a very strong reaction. And sometimes it was the feeling of knowing but not knowing. And yeah, I just broke down into tears, like I think I was sobbing.
Well, I remember hearing this beautiful narrative that the blood that flows through us is that of our tupuna. And we are nurtured by our taiao, which is the same ingredients that nurtured our tupuna. And so in our blood, we have the mātauranga Māori waiting to be activated. And that te reo Māori already knows us because it's a reflection of our taiao.
Yeah.
We just need to meet it halfway.
Yeah.
And so you're right, that there was something in you that knew this but couldn't yet wasn't quite yet ready to be able to meet it.
Yeah, until after I cried. And I think like you were a great space holder in that moment, kind of like Chrome was for Louis. And I had my tangi, and then afterwards it was kind of like, okay, wipe away the tears. And then all of a sudden I had access, and that was just to be able to say the kupu, like I think I was struggling with even just saying it and feeling like these layers of emotions around like whakama and shame and what if I get it wrong and pronunciation, all of these thoughts running through. And then as soon as I had that tangi, then, I mean, I wasn't perfect, but I could at least vocalize it, which was really cool.
Yes. Yeah, so it was like, okay, now I'm beyond the imposter syndrome. I'm aware of what this means. I know this. I know that this has been created specifically for my kaupapa, and that it is an energetic reflection of my kaupapa, and that if I can show up regulated and deliver this, knowing what it means, knowing what the kupu are, and then have that not just as a bookend at the beginning and the end of my kaupapa, but to look at re-indigenizing every part of that so that it becomes a natural reflection of this karakia, then actually we are in integrity with that Indigenous knowledge system.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you know, the beginning, tuia ki te rangi. So how can we think about being connected to rangi nui throughout our kaupapa, or whatever it is, whether it's me working with a hoiho or working with a group of people, like what is that bringing? And, you know, the same in all the other parts, but I guess that's actually living it rather than just speaking it, hey?
And that's why karakia is itself a strategic plan. I remember hearing Shay Wilson talking about this, this is kind of generalised mātauranga, as in many different whare wānanga will talk about karakia as a strategic plan. Not in those words, but essentially it was our tupuna going, here's where we're wanting to go or the outcome we're seeking. Here are the steps that we know we need to take in order to get there.
Yeah.
And then are we all on board? Yes, we are. Okay, it is done.
Yeah.
Setting the intention, we're away.
Yeah.
Taekia.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? And bringing voices together and intention together is really powerful.
The vibrational frequency.
Yeah. So neat. So that was a cool part of the journey of starting to re-indigenize. Well, I guess not even re-indigenize, but indigenize our work with horses. Because, of course, horses came post-colonization and...
Yes, and the interesting thing is that while it was indigenizing your work with horses, it was actually opening up a channel inside yourself to completely shift your life. And so it wasn't just that it was an isolated piece of the work that you did. It created a whole new redefining of yourself, of who you were, and how you saw yourself in the connection to your various ancestors, to your various friendships or this generation that are alive now, to the work that you're doing, to the way that you're relating to the taiao, to Rongoā, all of these things. So it's like, it just shows the level of activation that can happen in one moment like that, eh?
Yeah, one little moment. It's phenomenal. I'm like looking back and I'm like, I'm a completely different person. Of course, like bringing with me the wisdom that I learned from before, but the way my life looks now is just, I couldn't have ever imagined that, but I think my tupuna on the wall did.
And you know, they would be so proud.
Yeah.
Looking at you now and seeing the journey that you're on and the way that you are upholding their mana and bringing them into your life and into your work now, and seeing your little blonde-haired boy and being like, that is my mokopuna.
Yeah.
And being so proud of the way that he's growing up in such a varied world, you know, in such tough times where it's so easy to just turn your back on an ancestral knowledge system, but actually to reach out and embrace it and uphold it and contribute back to that puna mātauranga, to keep it alive. And so many people might look at you and be like, who are you to get a moko kauai before you speak fluent te reo Māori? Who are you to go and host a podcast around Rongoā? And you're like, that is just so sad that people are so still deeply in that trauma-based space, that deficit mindset, or the way that they were brought up, that feels inaccessible to them to such an extent that then they project that inaccessibility onto others. When it's like, no, we're all out here just trying to do our best, and we need everybody that we can to like fly the flag for Indigenous wisdom and to contribute just their little bit into that puna. To make sure that this thing is, this knowledge system is maintained for our next generations.
Yeah, definitely. And both Māori and non-Māori, hey?
Everybody's got a role to play in this. That's why I don't mind who's doing the mahi. I remember one time I was in Wellington and I went out. Actually, we were just going through a bike ride through the ngahere with a Pākehā friend who was a practitioner of mātauranga Māori, te reo Māori and Rongoā Māori. And we saw some kawakawa and I was like, oh yeah, I'll grab some kawakawa for a tea. And she's like, oh, you know, taihoa, we got to do our karakia first. And I was like, I actually don't know the karakia for harvesting kawakawa. And she's like, don't worry, I got us. And I was like, wow, like, okay, I'm getting schooled by somebody who doesn't even have any Māori heritage here. But kei te pai, because she had the knowledge, the tikanga, the connection to the atuatanga around that, in terms of understanding that realm, and then the ritenga, the practice to be able to do it.
How awesome is that, eh? And then she could gift that back to you as well, so that you could take that forward into your journey.
Yeah, and it definitely creates that edge of like, oh, okay, there's definitely a part that I need to be learning.
Yeah. It's a sharp reminder.
Reminder that, oh, Jesus, you never rest on your laurels. Otherwise, not Māori people will start to learn this stuff ahead of you, and, you know, like, wow, like, we don't necessarily want to be taken over, like taken, you know, the leadership always from other knowledge systems, but like, it's good to be challenged now and then. It's good to be reminded.
Yeah. So what do you think, like I hear you talking about bringing in your own mahi space, bringing in people that really hold that deep mātauranga Māori. And I guess it just dropped when you said that, like, oh, I'm kind of doing that through this podcast, like bringing in people that hold this deep mātauranga Māori so that we can indigenise the work that we're doing with our horses and the taiao, because like we've talked about through this podcast, everything is interwoven, and so if our hoihoa on the whenua, then we can't not but think about the health and well-being of that. But do you have any thoughts around what it could look like to indigenise our space with hoiho?
Well, I think that it happens at many levels. And I think you were probably indigenising your space around hoiho before you were adding a Māori lens to your practices. And what I mean by that is, if we think about the base of all mātauranga Māori being relational, a lot of the practices that you were doing were about healing the relationship with the horse, because the Western world's done a doozy on how we relate to horses. And treat them as objects, or treat them as the big beast that needs to be tamed or needs to be broken into submission. And so what I was seeing even back then, before you had any things you could point to say this is a Māori practice, where you had a way of being with horses, which was about healing that connection. And so the Māori knowledge that you've then been able to imbue into that, and the practices that you then bring in, whether that be through taonga puoro, or whether that be with various rongoā, or whether that be through karakia, or any other of these forms of practice, they're a nice layer on to what you're already doing at an energetic level. And so I think that, like, to answer that question around, well, what are some of these ways to re-indigenize our practices and things, especially with hoiho, it's to first go, okay, well, actually, let's make sure we focus on the connection, the relationship, the feeling, not just the thinking. And then to look at, okay, well, what are the different ways to elevate the energy in that relationship? Because anything that you look at, any kupu Māori, any concept that's Māori, has an energy to it. It is imbued with tapu, with mauri, with mana. And these are energies that move people, as Pahinare Tate would have said. Mana is an energetic force that has the potential to move people, and that carries the kaupapa forward. And so when we can recognise the ihi in ourselves, the wehi, or the ihi being the energetic pulsation or expression that we have, the wehi being somebody's response to that energetic pulsation, the wana, that is the holistic experience of that interweave of energetics that makes up mauri, that makes up mana, that makes up tapu, then we can recognize, whoa, there's just heaps of energy going on. And if we can, like, really regulate that energy, shift it, elevate it, move it if it's needing to be moved, quell it, then actually we're deeply connecting to what it energetically means to be Māori. Not just because we have some textbook understanding of, like, some, things that need to happen.
Practices. And then that also, I think, makes it accessible for people who are at any stage of their journey, and for people who are non-Māori as well, to feel like they can access those things safely.
Yeah, and I think that you're probably in a field around horse training or working with horses, where the practices, the tikanga Māori practices, are not as prevalent as other settings, such as working with pepe, or such as harvesting whales that have stranded on the beach. The base of mātauranga Māori around working with horses, and given that they're a species that only is a post-colonial context, means that, that it is a dynamic space. But our tupuna, as you will have been learning about through your own journey and talking to many elders, has the working with horses has had a whole bunch of mātauranga Māori imbued in it. And the combination of the human and the horse in the taiao and the connection to the taiao in that relationship.
Yeah.
Massive opportunity to like take a real practical thing, which is, when I go out and work with my horse, and turn that into a vessel or a vehicle for a practicing mātauranga Māori.
Yeah. With all of the skills that we're learning or tools from different parts of te ao Māori.
And then, like you said, using that as the mirror or the bridge to then relate to other humans, relate to other animals, relate to other parts of the taiao. Because the horse is such a good mirror. Right?
Yeah, just incredible. And it's been really interesting. One shift that I have made recently is, and I'm so lucky to be where I am, that I have access to ngahere, and so I've been starting my young horses in the ngahere, which I've never done before. It's always been in an artificial setting with an arena. And
why?
Yeah.
Why has it always been like that, and why did your mind go straight to that?
To do it in arenas and everything. I guess that was just what I was taught and
Isn't
brought
that
up
it?
with.
It's just the way it's always been done in a Western world.
Yeah, yep. And it's just amazing. I had so many accidents in in that way of working, especially if I wasn't really, really tuned in. But I noticed that when the horses are out in the ngahere, they're so much more calm.
Oh, well, there's the nature to help them regulate.
Yeah.
When they're in this big arena, it's like it's a scary place with nothing to help them regulate.
Yeah, and I think they're always asking, what do you want from me? Like, what are we doing? Whereas when you're out in the ngahere and there's just one trail going straight ahead, then the purpose is easy. We're moving through the ngahere together. And we have to move around trees, and as the horse does that, then I can add my human cues to it to help with direct them. But in the beginning, I'm just going with them, kind of going with the taiao.
Yeah, well, truly, you're just on this track of the taiao, allowing that to set the direction, set the course, and you can add a little bit of your own nudging in there to help them get used to the cues that they're already on a natural path.
Yeah,
but in an arena, they have to take all direction from you. There's nothing to help them to regulate into a sense of where you're going together. So it makes the journey so much more tense and stressful and complicated.
Yeah, and I think, like with you talking about mana before, it feels like when they're out in the ngahere, their sense of mana is elevated because that it's kind of like they're leading the way with purpose, and that's a really cool thing to experience. Yeah.
There's this interesting model that was developed by a group of elders, knowledge holders, including Piri Shasha, Nader Glavish, Manuka Henare Ma, regarding the different types of well-being. It was created for Treasury, and it was called He Ara Waiora.
He Ara Waiora.
Yeah, and it's a model that is helping us to see how do we live prosperously, noting that there are these different dimensions of capital. Human capital, financial capital, physical capital, natural capital, cultural capital. And so in this model, He Ara Waiora, that they came up with, there are 4 dimensions of mana that they talk about. One is mana tukuiho, or the mana that's passed down from a sense of belonging and kinship connection and whakapapa and tikanga understanding. So everything about knowing who we are comes from that mana tukuiho. The second is called mana whanake. And mana whanake is this ability to gather the different skills that we need in order to be able to go on a journey, to develop. So whether that be technical skills, practical skills, the critical thinking, The next is mana aheinga. Aheinga meaning to accomplish something, to attain something. And so this is like the ability to self-determine where we want to be, set a goal, and then go there.
Yeah.
And then the last part of this is mana tauutuutu, which is this mana that is through reciprocity.
Yeah.
And like the connections that we have to community and giving and receiving. And this is a beautiful model because it reflects to us that from using a mana-based concepts, if we actually help to ourselves and others to just gain these 4 types of mana as a mechanism to check ourselves and to like go, okay, what are we needing to work on more, improve more, or grow more of?
Yeah.
That these 4 things together, I would say loosely translate into mana motuhake, or self-determination. So we can use these kinds of concepts as a navigational mechanism in our own mahi, in the mahi that you're doing, but also just like with your own whānau, with your kids, whoever else, to be like, are we building enough sense of belonging? Are we building enough sense of the practical and conceptual skills that they need? Enough self-attainment and setting goals and achieving them, and enough reciprocity so that we're not just doing it alone, but doing it within the collective.
Yeah, that's so cool. I can really see how those 4 types of mana play out in our relationship with the horse as well, to have them feeling good, because I guess they can experience mana motuhake as well, right?
Well, they can if we allow them to.
Yeah.
Because so much of what a Western mindset is around horses, as far as I'm aware, is about submission and like dominating them into submitting and breaking their own free will.
Yeah.
Things like spurs and all that. It's like I will tell you where to go and how fast to go and in which direction. And so to give them some mana motuhake, or a sense of setting their own goal and attaining it, and things like, I can imagine that there's a lot of decolonization that needs to happen in the mind of horse trainers, horse owners, to even want to do that. To be like, no, I'll give my horse a bit of free rein here.
Yes, and it's really interesting, and this came up in one of our other podcasts, is just how many people have a hard time about letting go of the reins, and that's a really big thing for a lot of people, maybe for themselves and their own feeling of lack of mana motuhake and self-determination and control. So then they have to almost take it out on another to have that feeling of control. But if we let go of that and give them their own mana motuhake, then we can also reclaim that for ourselves. Yeah, as you were talking about the decolonization, I'm like, I've never thought about looking at it, at my mahi, through that lens. So I'm interested to go and do some noho puku and sit with that and look at what areas are still showing up for me in my work in a colonial structure. Yeah.
Well, every practice you can look at and you can go, where does this practice descend? What's the whakapapa of this practice?
Yeah.
And if you go, well, this is a Western practice, well, then there's always going to be an indigenous equivalent. And knowing that many of the horse species actually descend from the North Americas, the relationship that some of the indigenous American cultures have to those hoiho, I'm sure that there's a whole whakapapa of indigenous methodologies.
Yeah. I'm really excited to look at other cultures, indigenous cultures, after we explore Te Ao Māori, because I think we're going to learn a lot from them as well. Yeah,
kia ora. And that just extends that interwoven nature of mātauranga Māori and mātauranga o ngā iwi taketake o te ao. That actually all of these different cultures around the world will share a similar base of understanding and just expressed in different forms.
Yeah. What an exciting journey.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful mahi.
Thank you. Well, I reckon that feels like we've landed at a nice place to wrap things up. And I know your alarm went off before for heading on your way. But thank you so much for being a part of not only this podcast, but the journey itself, because it really did help to guide me on a totally different life path. And I'm so grateful for that and where it is heading. Yeah,
kia ora.
thank you for sharing your mātauranga and being here today.
O e mihi ki a koe. Me o mahi. Whakahira. No reira me whakakapi tō tātou. Kōrero hei te karakia.
Ai.
Turunga tū, turunga tapu. Te Māori tū, te Māori tapu. Te Māori te whiwhia, te Māori te rawea, te Māori nohia. Te Māori no rangi, no runga, no noko tū, no tū Māori rere. Tēnei te Māori ka whakapikia, tēnei te Māori ka whakakākia. Ko te Māori o rangi nui e tū iho nei, ko te Māori o papa tuanuku e takoto mai nei. Tau mai te Māori. Haumi e, ui e. Taiki.